Welcome back to the Schopen-Beard saga. We're to the last part, so I hope you guys are ready for the exciting conclusion of Schopen-Beard. Hope you guys enjoy. Without further ado, Part 5, The Epilogue. This final part contains my last noteworthy encounter with Schopen-Beard before he drifted completely to his new neckbeard coven. This story also intersects with my legbeard stalker, so with that said, let's proceed with the last encounter. New to the cast is Betty Beard. She's my very own legbeard stalker and sexual harasser. She's 5'6", plump and fat, greasy black long hair, dork glasses, braces, and acne. She's not particularly smelly. She's dressed in jean overalls, a t-shirt, and Converse-style shoes. She was socially awkward, but manipulative and a scheming weasel. Just imagine a short, fat, plump, and uglier version of Ugly Betty. Now with the cast introduced, with our Dews of the Mountain and the Doritos at ready, on with the story. This story begins at my university, as with most of this saga, specifically at the famous coffee shop that I mentioned in my previous entries. Ozzy Beard and I were discussing acid and where to buy it. I know, drugs in university, right? Definitely not cliche. We agreed that the best and safest place would be Port Andrew. That was our code name for a mall where we got many of our contrabands, knockoffs, and etc. that was sold in our country. So we decided to go on Friday, right after our classes. Well, Friday came. The car was ready, and Ozzy Beard and I were discussing what to do afterwards. We were going to go to his house and play some regular D&D campaigns, the one where I played my edgier than Cold Steel the Hedgehog with our friends the Sorcerer, Abraham Lincoln, which was a neckbeard-clad friend of ours. Then we had Bob. He was an artist and a bit of a pothead. They're not really much in the story, so that's all I'm going to mention about him. As we were in preparations, Betty Beard, who was somewhat of a friend to Ozzy Beard, overheard our conversation, and she said,
"Please, OP, let me go too. I want to see what the fuss is all about."
I felt something in her tone, like a secret intention and motivation. I chose to ignore it, since our ultimate destiny was Ozzy Beard's house. That was a fatal mistake, which ended in me being sexually harassed that night. Although, that's a story for another time. Ozzy Beard said calmly, "Yeah, I don't see a problem." I do not like this, I thought to myself, but whatever. So I sternly replied,
"Sure, whatever."
Betty Beard was ecstatic, and she cheerfully said,
"Yeah, thanks. I got to pass by my house for some clothes though."
Shocked, I said,
"Oh, why?"
She replied with a smug tone,
"Well, of course, silly. To spend the night there? It will be too late for public transport to where I'm staying."
I really had a bad feeling about this. Granted, she did live very far from university and from Ozzy Beard's place, but very close to Port Andrews. Plus, most of us, after our long campaigns, spent the night at Ozzy Beard's abode anyway, so I ignored my gut feeling and again I said,
"Fine, where do you live?"
Keeping her smugness, she said,
"Very close to Port Andrews. I'll show you."
"It's close, so whatever." Then I hear him approaching. The mighty Schopen-Beard. He had heard our interaction too, and he wanted to come along for the ride.
"Hey, OP, hope you aren't leaving behind for the ride, right?"
Why would I, right? Thanks to my lack of a spine and his kind of friendship with Ozzy Beard, I conceded to this mighty Beard's claims. Lucky me! Stuck in a car in heavy traffic with a leg beard and a neck beard. What could go wrong? And so, our party was formed, and we proceeded to board my mom's car, since she was kind enough to let me use it, which she did most of the time. I was in the driver's seat, next to Ozzy Beard, while the leg beard and the neck beard shared the back seat. I turned on the engine and put on some music to unburden my head. As I drive to the traffic-infested streets of my town, Schopen-Beard engaged on a euphoric outburst.
"You know, I just do not understand why people go to church and believe in God. Don't they see it's stupid? God is not real. Even if he was, he's a heartless bastard for letting that much evil into this world. That is why I agree with Schopenhauer.
Shocking, right?
Life is suffering, and the only thing we can do is accept it and avoid increasing and spreading the suffering."
Although that somewhat Buddhist take on Schopenhauer is convincing, I'm a good old unorthodox Catholic Taoist. At the time, sprinkled with a bit of New Age. I since abandoned the New Age ideas, but still, I wasn't in the mood for a theological debate, so I chose to remain silent, with my eyes on the horrible traffic. Ozzy Beard and Betty, they were in the mood though. Ozzy Beard took the lead, and he replied to the euphoric tirade. Yeah. Besides, they murdered many peoples in the name of their god, while priests abuse little boys, and they tell us that we Satanists are the evil ones. When he says Satanist, of course he meant an atheistic edgelord. Betty Beard interjected, and she said,
The Spanish Inquisition was the best example of that, not to mention the genocide of indigenous peoples.
If I were in a chatty mood, I probably would have interjected my own ideas. But I wasn't in the mood, so I remained silent. Schopen-Beard, in his usual misogynistic manner, outright ignored Betty Beard, and he replied to Ozzy Beard.
I know. Imagine going to church as a kid. That's a sure way to be impaled.
He unleashed his Sendashi Shiraiku that hit me for 1d6 sonic damage. After some time of euphoric statements, the sky began to darken, and I looked at the time, 6:56 p.m. Oh, thanks a lot, traffic. Port Andrews closes at 7, and we're nowhere even close to it. So I interrupt the euphoria flying wildly in the car.
Ozzy Beard, Port Andrews is almost closed and we have to buy our products some other day. Maybe next week.
He agreed, so I continued.
Well, it looks like our plans have changed. Can you give us the directions to where you're staying, Betty Beard?
She nodded happily and she said,
Sure thing. Just keep straight, then go left, then straight again, and I'll show you where to enter. If you need references, it's very close to the Motel Lumar.
You see, where I live, motels are very different to the American version. To put it plainly, it's where you go to have sex. Most of the time with ladies of the night, if you catch my drift. Great. I'm sure she wasn't implying anything to me. I followed her directions, and we arrived at a tall building. It looked like it was built not too long ago, and we entered the parking lot. Betty Beard cheerfully said,
Come on! You can wait for me in the living room. I'm sure my roommates won't mind.
Can't I just wait in the car? I thought to myself. After about a second, Schopen-Beard's eyes lit up, and he acknowledged Betty Beard for the first time.
Are they females?
To which she innocently replied,
Yes, we're all uni students.
Schopen-Beard licked his lips, and he rubbed his hands together, releasing a small chuckle, like a kid about to enter a candy store, and he immediately said,
Let's go, OP. It isn't polite to ignore a lady's request.
Ozzy Beard and I shared an annoyed look, as we knew full well of his eccentricities. He is going in anyhow, so we followed so that we could maybe avoid a tragedy. We piled into a small elevator. Ozzy Beard and Schopen-Beard's sheer mass forced me to be uncomfortably close to Betty Beard, who looked very pleased. Thank God, it wasn't long before we arrived at the 15th floor. We marched through a small hallway, and as we approached, Schopen-Beard whispered to me,
Do you think they're hot? I'm starving for some prime cattle.
I didn't answer, as Betty Beard said at that moment.
Here it is. Let's go in.
And we did. It was a small apartment. It had 2 rooms, a kitchen, and a living room. To Schopen-Beard's delight, there were 4 females staying with Betty Beard. Most of them were very normal, except for one who was reasonably attractive. Our beard friend almost couldn't contain his glee and his lust. He unleashed the Yoshifaku for all of them. They were very clearly uncomfortable, and they avoided interacting with us. We sat on the couch while Betty Beard grabbed her gear. Schopen-Beard again whispered to me,
They endure for a clutching, OP, don't you think?
Now, I must explain why this statement is very demeaning, since I translated it literally, as I could not find an equivalent in English. The overall statement means that they are f***able for just pumping and dumping. The endure part was almost cringeworthy, but the verb clutching was the most vulgar part. For those of you who don't drive, the clutch is the pedal that you push to change gears in a car. As you see, it implies that they were merely vehicles or tools to satisfy his lust. Anyway, he didn't perform his famous Sendashi Shiraiku, so I knew he was serious Luckily for me, Betty Beard was packed and ready to go, so we exited the apartment and we boarded the car. The trip to Ozzy Beard's house was long and already had cringe pains, so I don't recall any of what was said. I only remembered that Schopen-Beard didn't want to go to Ozzy Beard's place, and so asked if I can take him close to his house. I gladly did. One less beard to suffer, and it was on the way to our destination. After dropping the beard, we continued to Ozzy Beard's place, where the Legbeard stalker sexually harassed me. But again, that story is for another saga, just for her, in which Schopen-Beard also plays a small role. After the double beard encounter, my interactions with Schopen-Beard dropped dramatically, since we stopped sharing classes, and he spent most of his time with his neckbeard coven. Thank God. Thank you guys again for joining me for this edition of the Neckbeard Experience, the Saga of Schopen-Beard. I'm going to have all this put together into one long saga so you can listen to all of it. I want to give a special thanks to Elron the Dark One. You can follow him on Reddit, and I got it in a link below. Also, I want to give a special thanks to all the people who did voice acting in here. Shane Cochran, he did the voices for OP and the Neckbeard. Fabulous job. Couldn't say enough about it. I also have two friends that lived nearby. They did two of the voices. One of them did the Sorcerer, and the other one did the Legbeard. Great people. And also my wife. I really appreciate her help. I want to share one of the things that he said in this letter. I thought it was very sweet, and I really appreciated it. He said, finally, a very special thanks to Fun with Failure for narrating my story. Subscribe to him, Patreon him, and all those things. Send him your stories too. He's a very cool person and produces some grade A content, which I've been listening to for a while and can attest to his quality. Thanks again for the honor. Actually, it's my honor. This has been great, and I think you write very well. So thank you very much for sharing. I can't tell you how much it pleases me when someone shares their story with me to read specifically. So thank you very much. Well, with that, I'm going to end it, and I will see you guys again soon. And until next time, this is Dallas signing off.